Before we begin our story, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and drop a comment with your feedback on our stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The war had ended, or so the diplomats and bureaucrats proclaimed. Treaties were signed across the vast reaches of the galaxy, fleets were dismantled, and entire military industries were repurposed. For centuries, conflict had fueled fear and ambition, but at last, peace reigned over most of the cosmos. Yet on Ardent 7, a lonely, barren rock of ice and dust, the echoes of battle still roiled beneath a frozen sky. Here, two soldiers remained, relics of an era of violence, continuing a struggle that time had forgotten. Ardent 7 was no haven. Its surface was a jagged expanse of ice and rock, scarred by ancient bombardments. Craters pockmarked the terrain like wounds, and the biting wind swept away any trace of warmth. The twin moons, suspended in a sky of perpetual twilight, cast eerie silver light over the desolate plains. Beneath this hardened exterior lay a secret world, an intricate network of ancient tunnels whose walls bore glowing, cryptic symbols from a civilization long extinct. For weeks, Lieutenant Alex Carter had roamed these frozen wastes. A veteran of the Earth Alliance, Carter had seen the best and worst of humanity on battlefields across space. His once pristine uniform was now nothing more than tattered memories of a bygone era, stained with grime and streaked with frost. Every scar on his weathered face told its own tale, a story of loss, regret, and reluctant duty. Carter's piercing blue eyes, though weathered and haunted, remained ever vigilant as they swept the horizon, attuned to danger even in moments of deceptive quiet. Born on the bustling Martian colony enveloped by a glass biodome, Carter's early life had been one of promise and hope. His parents were engineers, visionary minds dedicated to taming the Red Planet. But when the Zorathian Dominion launched their surprise attack, he lost everything within the chaos. His family was among the first to perish in the onslaught. Fueled by a thirst for vengeance and a desperate need to protect what little remained of his world, Carter enlisted the very next day. Over the years, the seed of vengeance blossomed into a numbing resignation. The battlefield had become both his home and his graveyard, each victory etched with a price too high to count. On Ardent 7, the silence was deceptive. For Carter, the memories of battle, the stench of scorched metal, the cries of the fallen, were his constant companions. And yet, amidst the relentless isolation, he clung to a singular memento, a battered, faded photograph of his younger sister. Tucked away in the pocket of his uniform, that image served as both a lament and a beacon of hope, reminding him of the life he had once cherished and might yet reclaim if he could survive one more day. Commander Threx Vero emerged from the shadows of the frozen plains, a figure as enigmatic as he was imposing. The Zorathian Dominion's legacy bore him proudly, a towering presence encased in a chitinous exoskeleton that shimmered dimly in the lunar light. Vero's alien features were marked by rows of intricate mandibles that twitched with every subtle movement, an ever-present reminder of his race's heightened sensory perception and grim efficiency. Born on Zorath Prime, a world of towering crystal spires, vast luminous forests, and ancient wisdom, Vero had once nurtured a deep belief in the Dominion's mission. He remembered a time when honor and duty wove the fabric of his society. His people, disciplined and proud, had dreamed of uniting the galaxy under a banner of shared purpose. But the fires of war had ravaged those dreams. In the crucible of conflict, Varro had witnessed unspeakable atrocities committed in the name of conquest. Each atrocity had chipped away at his resolve, sowing seeds of doubt and regret deep within him. The relic he now carried, a small, intricately carved stone from his homeworld, was a cherished reminder of the peace and beauty that once defined Zorith Prime, and of a time when he still believed in redemption. Like Carter, Varro was a soldier and a survivor. The two had clashed over the barren expanse of Ardent 7 for weeks, each encounter sharpening their skills and deepening a grudging respect that could only be born from shared loss. Varro's strategies had long relied on an intimate understanding of his environment. He moved through the ice fields with a predatory grace honed by countless battles, every step calculated and deliberate. His inner voice, burdened with guilt for the lives taken in the name of his people, questioned whether the Dominion's cause was worth the toll it demanded. The chipping away of his convictions had left him yearning for a way to atone for his past transgressions. For weeks, fate had entwined the lives of Carter and Varro on the desolate stage of Ardent 7. They had hunted each other like specters in the storm, living on the razor's edge between life and death. Each encounter was a brutal ballet of survival. Under the cold gaze of the twin moons, Carter would set cunning traps using remnants of his battered gear, sending false signals to lure Varro into a deadly ambush. In response, Varro relied on his in-depth knowledge of the terrain, employing decoys and striking from the shadows with a precision that belied his inner torment. One bitter encounter played out beneath the towering silhouette of a massive ice spire. Carter had concealed himself in a crevasse, rifle aimed at the advancing Zorathian. He could feel his pulse thudding in his ears as he waited for Varro's footsteps to echo in the frozen silence. Yet, as fate would have it, Varro had seen through the trap and deployed a decoy, a holographic projection mimicking his form, that lured Carter's fire away. In the ensuing melee, they clashed in raw hand-to-hand combat. Their struggle had sent shards of ice cascading down the spire, illuminating the bitter desperation etched on their faces. In the frenzied violence, neither emerged victorious, both were forced to retreat, nursing painful wounds and the growing realization that their mutual survival might depend on more than enmity. One cold, silent day, as the relentless wind howled across the barren plains, a sudden transmission shattered the isolation. A crackling emergency beacon erupted from an old, battered comlink buried in the snow. The voice, distorted and laden with static, spoke the words that had changed everything: "The war is over. An alliance has been forged. Lay down your arms and await rescue." Carter and Varro, each on opposite patrols, heard the same message. In that surreal moment, the weight of years past seemed to press on their hearts. They both paused, weapons still at the ready, and turned their eyes toward one another across the frozen wasteland. The ancient scars of hatred and duty were still fresh, but the message held a promise of reprieve from endless conflict. For the first time, Varro lowered his weapon, a gesture that startled even himself. He exhaled deeply, his mandibles twitching in a mix of relief and hesitation. Carter's hands trembled slightly as the rifle slipped from his grasp to the icy ground. In that brief silence, the battlefield transformed into a place of fragile possibility, a realm where enemies might find common ground. Carter broke the stillness by retrieving a ration bar from his pack and, with a wry smirk, tossing it to Varro. The Zorathian caught it with a motion that expressed both suspicion and gratitude before taking a careful, measured bite. "You're not dead yet." "That's a good sign," Carter remarked dryly, his voice cracking with the effort of newfound trust. Varro's mandibles curved in what might have been the closest thing to a smile, a soft chuckle escaping his alien cadence. "Perhaps there is hope for your cooking after all, human," he replied, the irony warming the chilly air between them. In that ephemeral moment, they ceased to be mortal enemies and instead became survivors bound by the scars of war. They began to share quiet conversations beneath the twin moons, recounting memories of lives that had been lost and dreams that had been shattered. Carter spoke hesitantly of his sister, the light of his past, and the unyielding hope that had sustained him in his darkest hours. Varro, for his part, recounted tales of Zorith Prime, of ancient crystal forests and hymns of unity that had once sung in the halls of his memory. As days stretched into weeks on Ardent 7, Carter and Varro forged an uneasy alliance to ensure their mutual survival. The barren landscape, once a place of ceaseless battle, became a shared laboratory for hope. Together they scavenged the scattered remains of supplies buried beneath the ice, eking out sustenance from the remnants of their shattered lives. They worked side by side to repair broken equipment and construct a makeshift shelter in an abandoned tunnel system, an eerie labyrinth filled with the echo of ancient voices and strange, phosphorescent symbols etched into the wall. Their nights were punctuated by long, reflective dialogues that slowly dissolved the barriers of enmity. By the light of a plasma heater, as the bitter wind howled outside their sanctuary, they spoke at length. "Do you ever wonder," Carter asked one night, his voice soft and tentative, "if all this suffering, if all we've done, was ever truly justified?" Varro's mandibles shifted as he considered the question. "I have carried the weight of my decisions for so long. In my youth, I believed in a higher cause. I believed that unity was our destiny. But now," his tone faltered, heavy with guilt. "Now I wonder if we were meant only to learn that our pursuit of peace comes at an unbearable cost." Their conversation soon wove in unexpected threads. Carter recalled the vibrant Martian colonies of his youth, the warm, bustling streets beneath the protective dome, the laughter echoing in sunlit alleys, and the ultimate futility of war that had erased that world. Varro, in turn, spoke of the profound beauty of Zorith Prime, endless forests aglow with bioluminescent life and a culture rich in tradition and communal honor. Both soldiers, in opening up about their pasts, discovered shared pain and, remarkably, the seeds of friendship amid the ruins. Their mutual survival increasingly depended not just on their combined skills in battle but on the healing that occurred with each story exchanged, each regret confessed. Slowly, the notion of vengeance, so central to their identities, gave way to a cautious hope, an inkling that perhaps redemption might be possible even in the aftermath of catastrophic war. Just as the fragile trust between Carter and Varro began to illuminate new possibilities, fate delivered its next cruel twist. One night, while they sat sharing rations in their makeshift shelter, the ground beneath them convulsed with an ominous tremor. At first, it was a low murmur, a distant rumble that seemed to echo from the planet's very core. Then, without warning, the earth split open. A massive subterranean cavern yawned beneath their feet, its walls pulsating with an ancient, eerie light. Emerging from the darkness was a towering mechanical behemoth, a war drone of an age long forgotten. Its surface was etched in strange, glowing symbols like those in the abandoned tunnels, and its cold sensors swept over the intruders with methodical precision. It was not a relic of recent conflict, but an instrument designed by an extinct civilization, built to enforce an order that transcended time and history. "Run!" Carter bellowed, lunging to retrieve his gear as he scrambled toward cover amidst the jagged ice formations. Vero moved as swiftly as his alien frame would allow, the clatter of his exoskeleton mingling with the roar of the awakening machine. "This is your idea of peace, human," he shot back, voice edged with irony and desperation. Carter's retort was cut short by the searing blast of energy that the war drone unleashed. The air ignited around them, forcing the two soldiers to duck behind a crumbled outcrop. In that maelstrom of light and heat, it became starkly clear, the war might have ended, but destiny was far from finished with its final act. Cornered and outgunned by this ancient sentinel, Carter and Vero had but one option: to combine their remaining strength and knowledge to destroy the enemy before it could decimate them both. They pooled their resources and formulated a desperate plan, a division of roles that played on their unique skills. Carter, with his instinct honed by years of frontline combat, would act as the distraction. Vero, using his intimate familiarity with the alien terrain and precise strategic acumen, would stealthily plant explosives at the drone's vulnerable junctions. "Now!" Carter roared as he unleashed a torrent of gunfire, drawing the drone's attention and forcing it to pivot toward his position. Amid the cacophony of energy discharges and frantic shouts, Vero moved with the silent determination of a seasoned warrior. With deft, calculated movements, he attached the charges in critical positions on the drone's hull. In a synchrony born of shared terror and trust, Carter shouted the final command. "Detonate it now, Vero." The detonator was activated. A concussive blast exploded into being, a brilliant burst that shattered metal and scattered ice into stardust. As the shockwave subsided, the remnants of the drone lay silent and broken, a ruined relic of an era not meant for the present. Both soldiers, battered and bruised, realized that fate had thrust them together as more than adversaries. They were now partners in a cause greater than any personal vendetta. The explosion's aftermath stirred the frozen silence of ardent 7. As the dust of war cleared, the distant hum of engines reached their ears. High above the scarred plains, a Galactic Council vessel descended, a sleek, silvered ship that shone with the promises of rehabilitation and the end of conflict. A cadre of medics and diplomats disembarked, their faces a study in relief woven with subtle apprehension. "Lieutenant Carter." Commander Vero, one of the officials in a crisp uniform, addressed them. "We've been searching for you. The war is over. You're coming home." Carter and Vero exchanged guarded glances. At first, relief welled in their hearts, but too quickly, undercurrents of unease began to surface. The diplomats' smiles were too tight, their eyes sidestepping direct contact. The medics, too, appeared overly cautious, as though they were concealing more than they admitted. "Is something wrong?" Carter asked as they were guided aboard the ship. His tone was low, edged with suspicion. Vero's eyes narrowed as he listened to the whispered exchanges among the crew. "They are hiding something," he murmured to Carter. I sensed a hesitation in their words, a secret that has not yet been spoken. Their misgivings were soon confirmed when, by chance, they overheard a hushed conversation between two council technicians. The war drone they had obliterated was but one of many. Similar ancient machines had been reactivating across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had known for some time, and in a bid to prevent mass hysteria and preserve the fragile alliance between worlds, they had chosen silence over transparency. In a debriefing with a high-ranking official in a secure conference room aboard the vessel, the truth was laid bare. The official explained that these war drones were engineered by a long-lost civilization, the architects of a cataclysmic purge that had nearly eradicated all life in a forgotten era. Their design was to enforce finality, to end conflict by eliminating the belligerents altogether. Now, reactivated by the chaotic energies of the recent war, the drones saw the fragile new alliance as a threat, a potential trigger for another conflagration. You two are the only ones who have faced one of these drones and lived, the official continued gravely. We need you to lead a mission to find and destroy any remaining units before they can execute their program directive. Carter and Varro were stunned. Their feelings of relief were eclipsed by the dawning responsibility of a renewed battle, a battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. No longer fighting on behalf of warring nations, they were now called upon to save all of civilization from the indiscriminate wrath of an ancient technology. Reluctantly, yet driven by a newfound purpose beyond personal revenge, Carter and Varro accepted the mission. They were transferred to a newly commissioned ship, a state-of-the-art vessel equipped with cutting-edge technology and a specialized crew assembled from both the Earth Alliance and the remnants of the Zorathian Dominion. Among these specialists were astrophysicists, xenobiologists, engineers, and even former soldiers who, like Carter and Varro, had begun to question the legacy of war. Before departure, the two soldiers took a final moment on Ardent 7. Standing atop a craggy ridge and gazing over the ruined battlefield that had been both their prison and crucible, they contemplated the strangeness of fate. The frozen wasteland, once a symbol of death, now echoed with potential rebirth. Carter retrieved the faded photograph of his sister and caressed it gently. "I joined the war to protect her," he murmured, voice thick with both sorrow and determination. "Now I fight for every life that might be lost if these drones succeed." Varro, his voice low and sincere, replied, "On my homeworld, I once believed in unity, that our purpose was to uplift each other. Today, I see that trust must be earned through sacrifice. Perhaps together, we can rebuild what has been shattered." Their words resonated like a vow, a promise to face the unknown and mend a universe in peril. With the Galactic Council's directive and their shared commitment, Carter and Varro prepared to launch on the most critical mission of their lives. The journey aboard the new ship, christened the Vigilance, was an odyssey across uncharted space. The vessel, sleek and luminescent against the black tapestry of the cosmos, carried a crew united by both duty and the scars of past battles. In the bustling corridors of the Vigilance, camaraderie and cautious optimism coexisted with the lingering bitterness of war. During long shifts in the command center, Captain Carter and Commander Varro frequently conferred with the ship's chief strategist, Dr. Elena Miles, a former scientist whose research had once been dedicated to decoding the ancient languages of extinct civilizations. Dr. Miles' fervor and brilliant mind had uncovered startling clues about the origins of the war drones. According to her research, the drones were not merely relics of a bygone era, they were safeguards, programmed as a final solution to end conflicts that threatened planetary stability. In her hushed tone during one of their strategic meetings, she explained, these drones were built by a civilization that witnessed the unraveling of its society through endless war. Their purpose was to deliver a final, indiscriminate judgment. Now, in our turbulent times, their reactivation signals a looming threat that could reset the balance of life. Her words, weighed down by both academic certainty and personal regret, deepened the sense of urgency aboard the Vigilance. It was no longer a matter of national pride or military honor. This was a fight for the future of every sentient being. In the ship's mess hall, as the crew shared stories and tentative jokes, Carter and Vero found themselves increasingly drawn to one another. Their exchanges, at first marked by terse military etiquette, grew into genuine conversations that revealed hidden vulnerabilities and personal dreams. One evening, as they watched a holographic projection of distant nebulae swirl by the viewport, Carter remarked, "Before all this, I used to believe that every battle had a reason, every loss a purpose. Now, I wonder if some wounds are so deep that no victory can ever mend them." Vero, in a rare moment of introspection, replied, "I, too, carry memories that no amount of time can erase. Yet in this shared darkness, I've begun to see fragments of light. Perhaps our scars are not just reminders of past pain, they are symbols of survival, of the choices we make even when our souls are battered." Their dialogues, interspersed with laughter and long periods of thoughtful silence, forged a bond that transcended the labels of enemy and ally. In that crucible of adversity, they learned that compassion and understanding could bloom even on the coldest frontiers of existence. Weeks into their mission, as the Vigilance charted a course toward a remote star system known only by ancient designation, the alarm bells rang through the bridge. Sensors had detected multiple signals, replicas of the war drone's activation pulse, scattered across the fringes of the system. The Council's worst fears were coming true, the ancient machines were awakening, and they intended to bring about a cataclysmic reset of civilization. In a tense strategy session, Carter, Vero, and the crew pored over star charts and drone schematics. Dr. Miles pointed to a cluster of signals on a holographic display. "These coordinates indicate that the drones are gathering near a dormant orbital relay. If they connect and synchronize, they could trigger a chain reaction that will wipe out entire fleets, and perhaps worlds." The gravity of the situation was palpable. Both Carter and Vero exchanged silent, determined glances. Their next mission was clear: infiltrate the relay station, locate the central control node, and neutralize the threat before it could be unleashed. As the Vigilance descended toward the star system's barren moon, the crew prepared for a confrontation that promised to be their deadliest challenge yet. The ship's corridors buzzed with anxious energy, and every crew member knew that failure was not an option. On the eve of battle, Carter found a quiet moment in his quarters. He took the battered photograph of his sister and stared at it, memories of home flooding back, a time of safety, laughter, and unburdened dreams. His heart ached, but it also steeled him for the coming fight. In a voice barely above a whisper, he confided, "Every sacrifice, every tear shed. I fight so that one day the peace I lost, the home I remember, might be reborn." Vero, in the adjacent compartment, similarly wrestled with his inner turmoil. The relic stone from Zorith Prime lay beside him as a talisman of what once was. With measured resolve, he murmured to the silent darkness, "I must atone, not by blood alone, but by safeguarding a future where such horrors are never repeated. The attack on the relay station commenced under a sky filled with swirling cosmic dust and errant meteors. The Vigilance's specialized team, Carter, Vero, Dr. Miles, and an elite contingent of cross-faction operatives, descended in shuttle pods toward a derelict structure orbiting a dead planet. The relay station was a monolithic edifice, its surface covered in cryptic runes and etched with the scars of millennia. In the cataclysmic silence of space, as the shuttle pods broke away from the main vessel, the team's tension was palpable. Carter and Vero led the charge into the dark corridors of the station, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive shadows. The walls vibrated with an eerie energy, as though the ancient machinery still pulsed with a long-dormant life. Within the station's central chamber, they discovered the control node, a vast console seemingly carved from a single block of obsidian, its interface alive with fluctuating symbols. Dr. Miles worked furiously at the console, her fingers dancing over alien glyphs as she attempted to override the network controlling the drones. "Hold them off while I decipher this," she commanded, her tone urgent. Carter and Vero formed a protective line as waves of smaller, automated drone sentries emerged from the darkness. Laser fire crisscrossed the dim chamber, and the clash of advanced technology echoed in the void. Amid the chaos, the two soldiers found themselves back to back, old rivals now united by purpose. "You know," Carter shouted above the din, "I never thought I'd be fighting alongside one of you," he said with a wry smile that belied the danger. Vero's reply was terse, yet laced with newfound camaraderie. "Survival breeds the most unexpected alliances, human." Their banter was interrupted by a deafening alarm that signaled Dr. Miles had uncovered a crucial sequence. With a final keystroke, she activated an override that sent a jolt of energy surging through the station. The central node flickered violently, and for a brief moment, all the drone sentries halted, as if stunned by the disruption. "Now, Carter. Get to the override panel and secure the node." Dr. Miles shouted. Navigating the maze-like corridors, Carter sprinted toward the control console. Vero held off the remaining drones with precise, controlled bursts from his energy weapon. The station trembled under the force of the cascading energy pulse, a pulse that disrupted the ancient systems long enough for Carter to input a shutdown sequence into the console. An explosion of light and data rippled through the station as the override took full effect. One by one, the drone sentries powered down, their threat extinguished in a brilliant cascade of sparks. The control node dimmed, and with it, the latent menace of the war drones was neutralized. In the aftermath, silence reigned, a silence as profound as the one that had followed the end of the war. Carter and Vero, exhausted but triumphant, allowed themselves a moment of relief in the wreckage of ancient technology. The successful neutralization of the orbital relay was only the first step. Back on board the Vigilance, Carter and Vero faced the arduous work of piecing together the full scope of the threat. The Galactic Council, once so insistent on secrecy, was forced to confront the truth, that the ancient machines had been reawakened with an intelligence and malice that surpassed any conventional weapon. In an emergency session aboard the Council's flagship, high-ranking officials, scientists, and military strategists debated the next course of action. Carter and Vero were summoned to testify about their experiences on ardent, 7 and within the relay station. In a crowded briefing hall pulsing with tension, Carter stood, his gaze unwavering as he addressed the council. "We fought in a war that ended only to see its remnants rise again. Our struggle is not with nations or ideologies, it is with forces that predate our existence. The drones represent an ancient solution to conflict, a final judgment meant to erase civilization entirely." Varro added, his voice measured yet resonant with conviction, "We must approach this threat with transparency and resolve. The cost of ignorance is far too great. Let us unite, beyond terrestrial and alien differences, to forge a future free from the specter of these ancient weapons." There was silence as his words echoed off the high-tech walls of the chamber. The council members exchanged uncertain looks, caught between the desire for the peace they had labored so hard to achieve and the realization that a deeper, existential danger loomed. Following the council meeting, a new directive was issued, to form an intergalactic coalition dedicated to the disarmament and deactivation of all ancient war drones. Carter and Varro, once sworn enemies on the icy wastes of Ardent 7, were appointed as the coalition's foremost operatives, symbols of unity forged in the crucible of conflict. Together, they began to travel from one forgotten outpost to another, unearthing clues and tracking down dormant machines that threatened the fragile harmony of the galaxy. Their journeys brought them to bustling spaceports, derelict planets, and vibrant alien metropolises. They encountered new allies, scientists whose passion for uncovering lost histories was matched only by engineers capable of repurposing ancient technology, and even faced adversaries who clung to old ideologies and refused to believe that the ghosts of the past could be tamed. Through it all, Carter and Varro's bond deepened. Late at night on long space flights, they would sit together in the quiet hum of their vessel, sharing memories of war and dreams of a better tomorrow. Carter confided in Varro about the lingering guilt he carried for losing his family, a pain that no amount of duty could ease. Varro, in turn, revealed the burden of responsibility he felt for the atrocities committed under his command and his desperate hope to find redemption. One such evening, as the stars spilled across the viewport in a silent infinite canvas, Carter broke the silence. "I still see their faces sometimes, in the flash of a distant nebula, or the reflection of a cold star. I wonder if they're out there, wondering why I'm still fighting." Varro's mandibles twitched softly as he pondered his own scars. "We carry our past with us, always. But perhaps our actions now can be the remedy, be the apology that our failures never were. In forging this new path, we might finally lay our ghosts to rest." Their heartfelt conversation was a turning point, a mutual recognition that they must transform their personal tragedies into the guiding light for a better future. As the coalition's operations expanded, unexpected twists emerged. A covert faction within the Galactic Council, fearing that too much transparency might incite panic, began to manipulate intelligence, withholding critical data about the war drone's capabilities. Carter and Varro found themselves questioning the very institutions they had once trusted. Their investigations revealed layers of bureaucracy and political maneuvering that had nearly cost them the chance to avert further disaster. This revelation galvanized them further, reinforcing their belief that only by uniting across all divides could they overcome the ancient threat and restore true peace. Years passed as the intergalactic coalition worked tirelessly to track down and dismantle every reactivated war drone. The greatest challenge was yet to come, a final, climactic confrontation that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Intelligence had pinpointed a central command core, hidden on a desolate planetoid at the edge of known space. This core, it was believed, was the source that controlled and synchronized the drone network. In a daring assault, Carter, Varro, and a select team of coalition operatives descended onto the barren surface of the planetoid. The atmosphere was thin, the ground cracked, and the horizon obscured by swirling dust. The team advanced with precision, each member aware that failure would mean not only their demise but the potential activation of a doomsday protocol set in motion eons ago. On the outskirts of the command core, a massive, fortified structure pulsating with ominous energy, the team encountered fierce resistance from drones that had not yet been neutralized. In a flurry of coordinated maneuvers and desperate exchanges of fire, the operatives carved a path through the hostile machines. Carter and Varro led from the front, their years of hardened combat experience now channeled into a final stand against the ancient menace. Inside the command center, the air was thick with static and the hum of dormant machinery coming back to life. Dr. Miles and the Coalition's technology specialists worked feverishly to interface with the alien console. Varro and Carter guarded them as the facility threatened to collapse around them, a final trap set by the architects of the war drones. With moments to spare and the Coalition's hopes resting on their shoulders, Dr. Miles executed the override sequence. A surge of cosmic energy burst forth, severing the ancient network and plunging the command core into silence. The structure trembled and then slowly began to crumble as the guardians of the old order were finally silenced. Carter and Varro, bruised and exhausted, emerged from the debris with their team, victors in what felt like a final, fatal battle. Their expressions bore not the triumphant arrogance of conquerors, but the quiet relief of those who had narrowly averted catastrophe. In the months that followed the final confrontation, the intergalactic coalition began to rebuild. The Galactic Council, forced to acknowledge its earlier missteps, embarked on a new era of transparency and unity. Carter and Varro, now heralded as heroes of a conflict that spanned millennia, became ambassadors of hope, a bridge between once warring worlds. At a ceremony held in the rebuilt central hub of the coalition, Carter stood before a diverse audience. His voice, though marked by the gravitas of his experiences, rang out with optimism. "We fought not for the glory of battle, but for the chance to build a future together. We stand here today as proof that even in the darkest times, the light of unity can guide us home." Varro, his mandibles softened into an expression that bordered on a smile, added in measured tones, "Our pasts are etched in scars and memories, yet it is how we choose to carry them forward that defines our tomorrow. Let this day be the beginning of a new chapter, one written not in conflict, but in collaboration and understanding." The audience, composed of human, Zorathian, and countless other species, erupted in applause. The coalition's banner, emblazoned with symbols representing unity and peace, was unfurled against a sky streaked with the hues of dawn. In quieter moments after the ceremony, Carter found himself alone with Varro on the observation deck of a newly constructed peace vessel. They looked out at the galaxy, its countless stars now symbols of hope rather than remnants of war. Carter held the faded photograph of his sister close, a gentle smile touching his features despite the lingering shadows in his eyes. "I lost so much," he whispered, "but I've also found something unexpected in all this darkness: friendship, and the promise of redemption." Varro's eyes met his, filled with mutual understanding. "The path ahead remains uncertain," he replied softly, "but together, we have the strength to forge a future where the ghosts of our past no longer dictate our destiny." In that moment, amidst the quiet hum of the vessel and the starlight filtering through the expansive windows, two soldiers, once bitter enemies, understood the true nature of peace. It was not simply the absence of war, it was the courage to build a future united by trust, compassion, and the resilience of the human, and alien, spirit. Decades later, the names of Lieutenant Alex Carter and Commander Threx Varro became legends told in both somber remembrance and hopeful celebration. Their exploits were chronicled in academies, memorialized in holographic tributes, and remembered in the silent whispers of a galaxy that had learned to cherish its fragile peace. Schools taught that the end of the old war was not the moment of victory, but rather when enemies chose to lay down their arms and extend the hand of reconciliation. Statues were erected on former battlegrounds, now turned into parks and cultural centers, reminding future generations that even in the aftermath of destruction, hope could take root. In private moments, Carter's descendants would pore over the worn photograph of their ancestor, a relic that had traversed time as a symbol of sacrifice and love. And on distant planets, citizens celebrated the anniversary of the Day of Unification, a time when the intergalactic coalition was born from the willingness of former combatants to risk everything for the sake of a common future. Varro, having returned to Zorith Prime in his later years, became a revered elder and a living testament to the transformative power of regret and redemption. He spoke openly of his past, urging the youth of his people to seek peaceful solutions rather than replicating the mistakes of history. His carved relic, once a reminder of a lost paradise, came to symbolize a hope that could be rebuilt, one generation at a time. Thus, in the silent reaches of space where once only the echo of battle lingered, a new era dawned, an era forged by the courage of those who dared to leave behind the bitter legacy of war and step into the uncertain, luminous promise of peace.